Okay, great. You guys hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So thank you for attending. My name is Alex Palazzo. I'm the graduate coordinator for the biochemistry department here at the University of Toronto. And I'll be showing you guys a short presentation on our department, on our admissions process, exactly what it is to be a graduate student in the biochemistry department, and we'll talk about various other things, and we'll end with a Q&A session. So what is it to be a graduate student in the biochemistry department? So graduate students in our department pursue research. Okay, so if you join us, you'll be given your own research project, and you'll be working as part of a bigger team, pursuing a larger research program that the lab that you join is pursuing. Okay, so we're in the business of asking questions and finding answers, typically experimentally, although there's a fair number of faculty in our department who also do computational research. Okay, and we're really in the business of knowledge, building knowledge and exchanging knowledge. Right? So graduate school is not just about working at the bench, but it's also about exchanging your knowledge with your peers, presenting knowledge, and receiving knowledge, be it from seminars, be it from meetings that you can attend as a graduate student, conferences and such. All of that together is being a graduate student in the biochemistry department. Okay, so our department is quite large. We have a total of 69 faculty. 4 of those are teaching faculty, and they don't actually pursue any research, but we do have 15 core faculty, mostly located in the Medical Science Building, the Donnelly Center, CCBR, but most of them are actually at Mars. And on top of that, we have 50 cross appointees that are at various research institutes and hospitals in the GTA, okay? And we're a quite diverse department. There's quite a few types of research being done, be it how cells signal each other, how intracellular signals are processed. We have a large contingent who are studying microbiology, not just how bacteria work and function, how they interact with their hosts, if they're pathogenic. We have a lot of structural biologists who are actually looking at the molecules of life themselves and doing structural functional studies. And that could be biochemical analysis, X-ray crystallography, cryo-EM and such. We also have a large contingent of cell biologists who are looking at the behavior of cells, how proteins and genes affect cellular behavior. We have quite a few who are looking at small molecules for drug discovery. And of course, as I mentioned before, we also have a pretty strong contingent of computational biologists who examine problems in biology through the lens of computers and algorithms and such. So as I mentioned before, we are a very diverse and broadly located department. The vast majority of the core is actually in the Mars Discovery Tower, where I am currently. We also have a very large contingent at the PGCRL, which is part of Sick Kids, but we also have researchers at Mount Sinai, Princess Margaret, Toronto General, Medical Science Building, Donnelly Center, and actually further out to Sunnybrook and St. Michael's Hospital. We actually have some faculty out there as well. So we're a pretty broad department. I want to point out something that I think is just important facet of doing research, not just in the biochemistry department, but at U of T in general. So I'm showing you a picture here of the U of T campus, as well as all of the research institutes along University Ave, including, Mount Sinai, Toronto General, and then down here would be Sick Kids. What you're looking at here is 40% of all Canadian biomedical research, and it's conducted within a 1 kilometer radius of Mars. So it's a real dynamic and interesting community to be part of. A lot of us are very collaborative. We have a lot of branching out networks, and it's a great time to be, in the life sciences, and it's an exciting place to be. Okay, I want to talk to you about graduate applications, kind of riffing off of Rory's talk that you just saw. So for September 2022, so that's entering in about 10 months, we have two application deadlines. We have one in mid-January, and we have one at the end of April. And I will tell you that typically our strongest students apply early. And so we really try to get to forecast how many students we can take, and that's really dependent on the funding situation of our faculty and the number of students who are graduating from various labs. And based on that, we take in students. Now, we don't necessarily have to take in as many students as we have positions for, but roughly the number of students that we get that are sort of able to accomplish the program sort of matches what we can take in. And typically our strongest students apply for that mid-January deadline. We don't actually have the exact dates out yet on the website, but it probably be in and around January 15th for that first intake. And then we have a second intake where the deadline for that is typically at the end of April. So just go to our website. I actually have a URL here, but I think it's very easy just to find our website and search how to apply, and you have all the relevant details there. So what are we looking for in our graduate applicants? Well, we are looking for students that have some independent lab experience and who show the aptitude for pushing science forward. That's really what we're looking for, right? So when we look at our applications, yes, we look at the grades. The grades are important. I think that we're looking for students who will have a history of working hard and have a solid foundation. But what's really important, and I really want to stress this, are the letters of reference, especially from research supervisor who have observed you in the lab, right? We are really looking for individuals who have that fire in the belly, who are excited about research and are willing to kind of push a project forward. That's what we're looking for. So that's really, if you want to have a strong application, you need to have strong letters of references from people who have observed you in the lab. Now, of course, we do look at your letter of intent, and it's important in your letter of intent that you tell us what type of research that you want to do, who in the department you would be working for. If we get a letter of intent that kind of doesn't match the type of research that's going on in our department, we'll be scratching our heads and we'll be wondering, why is the student even applying to our department? So I'd encourage a lot of you to, if you're thinking about applying to the biochemistry departments, spend some time on the website, look to see, what type of research is going on inside the department, and tell us, what are you interested? Why are you interested? Who you would like to work for? Those are really important. Now, starting this year, we're going to be asking international students to find a sponsor lab before they can apply. And I'll get more into what exactly that means, but we're going to talk about the rotation system, which is one of the interesting things that our department has that's not very common in Canada, although I think most American institutions, graduate schools, in the biochemistry or cell biology or molecular genetics departments have rotation systems. Okay, so just a little bit more on grades. So again, like Rory said, we don't have like a fast and hard rule. We consider applicants who achieve at least a B+ average in their last 2 years of study, but in an honors or specialist Bachelor of Science program. And that could be, from any relevant topics, biochemistry, molecular biology, cell biology. But don't be afraid to apply if you have backgrounds in physics, chemistry, and computer science. Actually, a lot of people in our department are using principles from those to analyze, how molecules and cells behave, right? Famously, Lewis Kay, who's one of probably the most famous members of our department and is really at the leading edge of NMR. I mean, a lot of people in his lab are developing new NMR techniques based on, deep principles of quantum mechanics. So if you have that background, we do have people in the department who could potentially supervise you. Now, for applicants outside of Canada, we require a degree equivalent to that of a honors specialist degree, as described, for the Canadian applicants. And in some cases, this may be a Master's of Science degree. And it should be an irrelevant topic. Okay. For those individuals who didn't attend a Canadian university and English was not the first language of instruction in that university, we do ask for a TOEFL score. And that's just to ensure that, once you get here, you'll be able to function in the environment in the lab. Because don't forget, graduate school is not just about building knowledge, it's about sharing knowledge. And so we need, proper foundations for that. Okay, so our department has a rotation system. So what does that mean? It means that if you receive an offer from our graduate program and you decide to accept that offer and you come to the biochemistry department, you will then, for your first semester, perform 3 rotations, each of them lasting 5 weeks in 3 different labs. The very first rotation will be asking you for preferences before you arrive. We'll give you a list of faculty who is taking graduate students, and from those you'll tell us who you'd like to rotate with. And from those lists, we will place you in your first lab. And then once you're in our department, you'll have the chance to interact with faculty and different graduate students and figure out what the different labs are doing. And so once you're here, we will help guide you for your second and third rotation placements. Now, at the end of your third rotation, based on your interests and you discussing this with potential advisors, you will be placed in a lab. Occasionally, students need more than 3 rotations, and so about 1 to 2 students per year do a 4th rotation, and that would be in January if you start in September. So typically the first semester is all taken up by rotations, and if you need to do a 4th rotation, that would be in January. And typically after those rotations, you're placed in a lab. So the advantage, of course, of the rotation system is I like to always think about graduate school as almost like an arranged marriage, right? You're sort of like, you want to go to a lab and then you're stuck there. And if you're a PhD student, you might be stuck there for 6 years, right? This at least gives you an opportunity to experience different lab environments, different types of research projects, different methods of investigating biological activities. And I would say that about 1/3 of our incoming students end up joining a lab that wasn't even on their radar when they applied to graduate school. So it really speaks to how great of a rotation system is, like a rotation system. There are 2 other departments that have rotation systems, I believe, at University of Toronto, molecular genetics, actually 3 other, molecular genetics, I believe immunology, and medical biophysics. Anyway, most of the other life science departments do not have rotation systems, and there you would be entering in like a lab from the get-go. And then before I move on, I just want to come back around and touch upon this whole idea of sponsorship. So when we give an offer to an international graduate student, it's a big thing for that student, right? They're leaving and they're coming to Canada. And so we want to make sure that those students will have some sort of lab that will take them no matter what. And that's where sponsorship comes in. So if you're if you don't have Canadian citizenship, or you're not a permanent resident, right? So you are international, so you don't have permanent residency in Canada, we ask that you actually find the sponsor. So you should be writing to potential supervisors, telling them, I'm thinking about joining the biochemistry department, but to apply, I need to have a sponsoring lab who is willing to take me. And so you would ask for sponsorship. At that point, if they are willing to sponsor you, you would have them write to myself or Carrie Harbor, who works in the biochem office. All of this is explained on the website, and explain that you found the sponsor. And then at that point, we'll allow you to put in an application. Okay, that's actually new. We'll be putting more details about that on the website, but I just wanted to point that out. Okay, so once you're a graduate student, and as Rory pointed out previously, you'll be in a lab. You'll have your own research project, and we will provide you with funding. And this is what you would call a stipend, and that will cover your living allowance and the tuition. Right? So this is just the numbers for this year, for the 2021-2022 academic year. So for example, if you're a master's, then you would be receiving about $22,600 for living allowance, and you would also receive about $8,000 to cover tuition. For the PhD and direct entry students, it's a little bit higher. It's about $25,000 for the living allowance, and then the tuition is about the same. International students, typically we only take in international students at the PhD and direct PhD entry, and they would also be receiving the PhD stipend. Now, of course, if you are a graduate student, you have the opportunity to be a teaching assistant, so TA-ship. There are TA-ship positions available both in our department and in other departments. And if you do choose to become a TA, it's a great experience, but we don't require it. So just be aware that there are some departments that require their graduate students to be TAs, and part of their stipend is actually paid from their TA salary. In our department, TA-ships are not required, and if you do get a TA-ship, whatever salary you would get from that would be in addition to the stipend that the department would provide. And there's different types of TA-ships. Some of them only involve marking and invigilating exams. Others are more about running tutorial sessions for undergraduate classes. And some of them, although there are not too many of these, are actually helping to run our undergraduate laboratory courses. Okay, so these are all available if you join our department. Now, of course, we have a very active graduate student student union. They organize various activities. They're also in charge of many of our departmental functions. So not only are they having different activities, such as, they have a team in the softball league, and they have different activities. They are actually in charge of the Christmas party of our departmental retreat. We have a departmental retreat every year. For the last couple of years, it was online only, but I anticipate that next year we'll be back to a live departmental retreat. Typically, we go someplace up in Northern Ontario to Muskoka, and we're all together for a couple of days of science and different other activities. Usually that's organized by our graduate student union. So this departmental retreat, typically we have this in September, and it's really an opportunity for new students to see what type of research is going on in the department. So it's a great time for the rotation students to meet potential supervisors, but also we have a lot of talks from our current graduate students and postdoctoral fellows. And so it's a great time for the department to kind of get together and exchange ideas and have a really, interesting weekend, kind of isolated up in the woods. It's always a lot of fun. Okay, this is just a picture from a couple years ago of everyone at the retreat. You can see we're up. I think this was taken at Geneva Park. Not sure where the next retreat will be, but it's usually a highlight of the year. So here I'm just sharing with you a general schedule of what would happen if you join our department as a master's student, right? So up here is basically year one. And in the first semester of year one, you would be performing your rotations. And at the end of December, you would be selecting a lab that you would join with a mentor and such. At the same time, all of the entry students in our department take this course. It used to be called Effective Science Communication. They made us change it to Scientific Skills for Biochemists. But basically, this is a course that you take with all the incoming rotation students, and it's we try to put you on the right footing. We give you a class about how to think as a scientist, how to design a research program, how to effectively write research proposals, how to give an effective seminar presentation and such. I teach that with Nana Lee. Okay, and basically to complete your requirements, you have to take another quarter credit course, and upon achieving a half credit, which would be this quarter credit intro course and another quarter credit science course, you'd be fulfilling at least the credit requirements to either obtain a master's, or if you want to transition, you can ask to be reclassified. And at that point, you would take an exam for reclassification exam, and then we would transfer you to the PhD program if you were successful. That exam is typically taken 18 to 24 months after you start. Okay, so that would be towards the end of the second year, right down here in April and May. Okay, I don't want to go through much of the rest of this. But this is just giving you a general sense that actually you would be doing rotations, and most of your time then would be in the lab. You take just one or two more courses, but really the goal here is to sort of immerse yourself in research and try to push a project forward. Now I just want to touch base with you in terms of this class that we have that now is called Scientific Skills for Biochemists, BCH 2101. So this is a required course for all the incoming students. It's a quarter credit course, and it runs concurrently with your rotations. And we really try to get you guys up to speed, right? Teaching the core skills of oral communication, written communication, how to provide constructive criticism to your peers. And we really work through exercises focusing on all of these, how to design a project. And we also give you some training in graduate professional development. And so that's the other thing I want to touch upon. One of the real areas that our department has really innovated in is the graduate professional development program. And this is really spearheaded by Nana Lee. And it really has these courses that we provide to our PhD students. So if you either became a direct PhD entrant, or if you reclassified to the PhD program, you would have access to these courses. And this really provides opportunities to think about how your graduate program can really help develop your skills after graduate school. And it's been featured on Science Careers, and has really been sort of like a role model for other departments at U of T, and other departments internationally are starting to mimic our GPD program. So I just wanted to put that out there. So I'm going to skip through this. The other thing that I will point out, and I think this is really interesting, not just for if you're thinking about graduate school in our department, but graduate school actually anywhere at U of T. A former chair in biochemistry, Professor Reinhard Reitmeyer, I need more coffee, I think, launched this 10,000 PhD project, where they went back and they looked at all of these PhD graduates from various departments and asked the question, well, where did their PhD degree lead them after they left graduate school? So I'm just going to give you some of the statistics for the biochemistry department, but these statistics are actually available online, and I encourage all of you to go, and you could just Google 10,000 PhD project. All of this information is out there. So this is looking at PhD graduates from the biochemistry department between the years 2000 and 2011. So that's anyone who graduated between in that decade, and where they were in 2017. So this is looking 6 years afterwards. So about a quarter of our graduates actually were research faculty, with another 21% having other academic positions. So this would be either a research associate, a postdoctoral fellow, or such, right? About a quarter of our graduates went into industry and research. So this would be either biotech or pharma. About a quarter of them went on to either being MDs or actually research staff. So this, what's included here are actually people at hospitals conducting research. So some of these would be faculty equivalent positions, and that would be another 14%, right? And then about another quarter went into diverse other sectors, whether it would be the charitable sector. So for example, working for the Canadian Breast Cancer Foundation, working for the government, such as Public Health Ontario. And some of them, went into law, for example, whether it's intellectual property law or things that are sort of relevant. And some of them went into science writing. So I have to say, I was quite pleased. I didn't know that like a quarter of our graduate studies went right into like research faculty. That's pretty outstanding. So this data is freely available. You can actually peruse the database for any department, PhD graduates from any department. All of the stats are all online. Like I said, just Google 10,000 PhD project, and that's available to you. Okay, I think I'm gonna skip ahead here. So anyway, I just want to end off. We're a very vibrant, diverse community. It's really a lot of fun to be in graduate school. You're really pushing the edge of discovery, and when you discovered something, and you're sort of like the first person to ever see this, it's quite a feeling, and it's really what drives my passion for science. And this might be for you. So if you think that this is something that interests you, I encourage you to apply to the biochemistry department. Okay, so at that point, I'll just take questions.
Take one question. If someone has like one question to put in the chat.
Is it a rolling admissions? It is not a rolling admissions. We have two application deadlines. We have this early one in mid-January. I think it's probably going to be January 15th. And we have another one towards the end of April. And we look at those two cohorts separately, but we look at each cohort as a cohort. So from the applications that we receive in January, we go through them. If there are people that we're unsure, we may interview people over Zoom. And typically, by the beginning to mid-February, we send out offers to the first group. Now, the second group, the deadline is sometime in April, and we usually send out our offers to those students sometime in May. Okay, so we have basically two deadlines that we're looking at, and this is for September. Now, we also do admit students in January, and for that, typically the deadline there is mid-October, and by November, we send out our offers. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you so much. I guess we'll start with Charlie now. So we're around. Okay. Thank you so much, Alex. I guess if you have any questions, please email Alex personally to his email. Thanks.
Yeah, you can email me at alex.palazzo@uft.ca. Okay, thank you very much.